This French yogurt cake has so many good memories for me. It's easy, simple, and of course it's delicious, and I'm really excited to share it with you today. Welcome back to my channel, or if this is the first time here, nice to meet you. I'm Carla from Cooking for Kales, and if you're interested in easy, simple, and delicious recipes that won't break the bank, then consider subscribing to the channel. Make sure to click that notification button so that you know the next time I upload another video. So about this cake. I first had this cake a number of years ago when I went to France. I had been made redundant from my job. I wasn't married. I didn't have Caleb at the time. And I've always wanted to learn to speak French. And so I thought, why not go take my redundancy money and immerse myself in the culture so that I could learn the language. And while I was there, I lived with a woman named Madame Bailey for a number of months. And Madame Bailey was an extraordinary woman, and she was a really good cook, and I learned a lot from her. And one of the things we used to have every morning for breakfast at her house was a slice of this cake. She also used to have like an assortment of jams that her friends used to make, jams and marmalades, and we used to have that on the cake, as well as a nice brewed cup of coffee, and that would always set me up for the day. When I left France though, I thought a lot about Madame Bailey, and I thought a lot about this cake, and I forgot to get the recipe from her. So I went on a search looking for Madame Bailey's cake, and I made a lot of yogurt cakes, but they were none quite like Madame Bailey's until I came across this particular recipe from Chef Lola's kitchen. It's very close to Madame Bailey's, and I'm really excited to share it with you today. Let's get cooking. Okay, so I've got the oven preheating 350 degrees Fahrenheit or 180 degrees Celsius. The other thing that you're going to need to do is prepare a loaf pan. So what I have here is a loaf tin, and I have a loaf liner in here. If you didn't have a liner, what you would need to do is butter this down and sprinkle some flour in it, tap out the excess flour, and just set it aside until you get the batter ready. I'm going to start with the wet ingredients first. So the first thing you want to do is you want to add the sugar. It calls for 3/4 cups of sugar, and that's about 150 grams. So I'm just add 150 grams in here. And I always go a little bit light on the sugar. So I never do, like if the recipe calls for 150, I kind of do just a little bit less, and it still works out fine. So I've got in about 145. You know what, I'm gonna do 150 this time. That's 150. The next thing you want to do is you want to zest the lemon into the sugar. And a tip for you, one thing that you can do is freeze lemons, and that way you always have a lemon that you can zest. But the other thing is you can go right through the skin, right through the pith, and to the actual fruit of it, and you can actually do the pith as well, and that's fine. It works out. I learned this from a sushi chef. I went to a sushi class. My colleagues at work gave me a sushi class for my birthday. And at first I was dubious about this particular trick. I'm like, really? But it actually does work. So the recipe calls for a tablespoon of lemon zest. And that would be about a full lemon. But because I'm using it this way, I can just eyeball about a tablespoon and go straight through to the fruit. And once this is done, I will pop this lemon back in the deep freeze, and it will be ready for the next time I make this cake, or the next time I need some lemon zest. About a tablespoon in there. So I'm just gonna mix this up. Mixing the sugar and the lemon zest. See that? On Chef Lola's kitchen in her blog, she recommends putting your fingers in there and sort of rubbing the lemon and the sugar together. But I find if you just use a fork like this, that works too. And what I'm gonna do, I think, is just do a little bit more lemon. It won't hurt. We'll have a nice lemony flavor. Oop. I didn't see that coming. Things like this happen, but it's okay. So that's my lemon and my sugar. The next step is to crack the eggs, and this recipe calls for 3 eggs. I'm going to do one at a time. I keep my eggs at room temperature. Out here in the UK, I don't think it's necessary to put them into the fridge, but if you live in a hot climate, like for instance, I'm from Bermuda, and we wouldn't leave our eggs out on the countertop. We would keep them in the fridge because it's quite hot there and quite humid. So I'm incorporating 1 egg at a time. That's egg number 1. And as you can see, I'm just using a simple fork. You don't need anything fancy here. Actually, when I was doing some research on this particular recipe, I found out that this French sugar cake is something that's very typical, and that what French people teach their children. One of the first recipes that kids learn in France is this cake. It's that simple to make, which I think is awesome. And the fact that you can have it for breakfast is even better. Okay, this is egg number 3. Oh, lovely. Mixing that up. Eggs and sugar and the lemon zest is incorporated. I'm just going to put in a teaspoon also of vanilla. Gives it an added flavor. And 112 grams of yogurt. And what I'm using here is just some natural yogurt. The great thing about this recipe is you can use whatever yogurt you have. In fact, I've made it once with coconut yogurt. I made it for my best friend May and her partner O, and I used the coconut yogurt, and May thought it was okay. They seemed to like it. So there's 112 grams of yogurt, and then a half a cup of oil, and I'm using a sunflower oil here. You want to use a flavorless oil with this. I wouldn't put olive oil in it necessarily, although you know what, if you only have olive oil, give it a try. But this is a flavorless oil, and I'm going to put in a half a cup of this, which is 122 grams of oil. Being careful not to overdose on the oil. Awesome. Now I'm going to mix this all together, and this will be the wet ingredients done. I smell the lemon that I zested in there, which is great. That's all come together nicely. Just using a fork. See? Wet ingredients done. So now I'm moving on to the dry ingredients. So I'll zero back out my scale. And this calls for 1.5 cups of all-purpose flour, which is about 192 grams. Put in the flour. $192 grams, almost there. Almost. Scales are fantastic because there's no guesswork. It's 192 grams or 1.5 cups of flour, 2 teaspoons of baking powder, 2 teaspoons of baking powder. It's extremely simple. 1, let's make sure to level that off. 2, and a pinch of salt. To put that in my pan and give a nice, make sure I put a pinch and a tad bit more, and voila, it's ready to go. So these are the dry ingredients. And then the next step is move my scale away, is to incorporate the dry into the wet. I'm just going to stir this around until this comes into the batter. Really easy and so damn delicious. I'm not over stirring it either, just making sure that it's all incorporated. So you don't have to get every single lump out if you think that's what you need to do. Nope. Okay, I think she is ready for my oven. Well, ready for the pan and then into the oven. Voila. Bring the pan over, pour the batter into the pan, and I use a spatula to sort of scrape it all so I get every last drop. Every last bit of goodness. I often wonder about Madame Bailey and how she's doing now. I've since lost the ability to speak the language. I didn't keep practicing when I came back. That's one of my regrets, but I still plan to learn the language at some point, or be fluent in it mainly. So, there's the batter in the pan. I'm just tapping it down to make sure there's no air bubbles in it, and then this goes into the oven for 40 to 50 minutes, but keep your eye out on it until it's golden brown. I'm pretty sure mine's going to be ready before that because I have a very fierce oven, so I'll keep my eye out and check it in about 30 minutes, but the recipe calls for it to be in the oven between 40 and 50 minutes. So it's been about 30 minutes and I have taken it out of the oven because it's nice and brown on the top. I also used a toothpick and I inserted it into the cake and it came out nice and clean, so I know that it's cooked inside. This really takes me back to Madame Bailey's kitchen. Thanks for watching, and if you've stayed to the very end and you like this video, please consider subscribing. Click that notification bell so you'll be notified the next time I upload another video, and I'll see you in the next one.